So Jamie's posts have been at the very least interesting of what might be coming soon in the next few updates, and that is of course changes to the roamers base stats, specifically Ikazune, Mutagon, and Metronette. So let's review them. Ikazune has been getting a pretty good buff overall, I'm pretty sure, and of course is going to be getting a massive speed buff of 20 plus base stats, and of course losing 5 range defense and 15 energy. This energy stat, I do think it's a pretty bad nerf to its energy stat, but overall won't be changing much to Ikazune, considering that Ikazune already has a high energy stat even after the nerf, so it's not going to be too big of a deal. And its range defense stat, it's only 5 base stat points. I'm pretty sure if you can find something, then it's basically going to be a really big difference, but I don't think there is much to be talking about in this. But its speed stat is pretty much the important thing here, because you are put into the speed tier of stuff like Ticlipse, Zeppelin, Wintrix, and Deladrix, which are all pretty fast Loomians in their own right, which is pretty good. You outspeed every single wall in the metagame that would want to wall you, and overall you do outspeed some other offensive Loomians like Valkyrie, Wrestlin, C.B.O, just to name some. So yeah, that's pretty good for Ikazune. I do think it's gonna be pretty good now, because now it has a pretty different role than it had before, and that's basically a wall breaker. But now Ikazune has the potential to sweep teams and wouldn't really want the boots anymore, which is pretty good, because overall boots is a pretty bad item after the speed buff, but you can't use it. But I just think that Ikazune needs the magnify boost. So yeah, Ikazune overall pretty good buff. I don't think it's gonna be pretty good enough that's gonna make Ikazune meta, but I do think it's a pretty solid buff and a good step in the right direction. However, Mutagon, which we'll be talking about next, is one of the bigger nerfs of this tweet, and of course melee defense HP getting nerfed and a range attack buff, which is not really anything special. Its melee defense stat and HP nerf makes it so, like Jamie said here, Mutagon's bulk alone allows it to easily set up brawn boosts, which is pretty much the main problem of why Mutagon is broken. There's already very few answers for Mutagon, so yeah, nerfing its defenses is a pretty good suggestion. And overall, I do think Mutagon nerfing its defenses is pretty good. Its HP stat is pretty big, because now you're going to be taking a lot more damage from range attackers, which is obviously pretty good. Mutagon's main weakness is still range attackers, that's good. And overall, it's getting buffed in a place where it doesn't really need it. So yeah, overall, Jamie nerfed Mutagon pretty good. I don't think that it's going to be enough to make Mutagon in the OU metagame, because Mutagon's coverage and ability to set up is still there, which is pretty good. And yeah, Mutagon might be an Uber still, but overall, we just have to see. And the final nerf of this patch, or these set of tweets, is the Metronette nerf. Overall, I do think this is a pretty good nerf to Metronette, because the main problem with Metronette is that it has a lot of good natural bulk, which allowed Metronette to set up a lot more, and overall, it's pretty good at that. Now, after the defensive nerf of its melee defense and range defense, it has a bit of a harder time with it, but it still has a decent HP stat of 83, and overall, Metronette is still pretty good. I do think it's still an Uber because of its base stats. I mean, 79 and 83 HP is still a pretty good base stat combination, and 83 with range and defense of 89, it's still pretty good. While it is a really significant difference, like 10 minus here, and what, 16 minus in the melee defense, Metronette might be in the OU metagame. I'm just not sure, because of its hypnotize ability, still pretty strong. Its defensive ability is still really good too, and overall Metronette has pretty good coverage. I do think it's going to be a really strong Uber, but will it be in the meta? I'm not sure. So why don't you leave your thoughts down below in the comments. Feel free to discuss whether you think these changes are bad, whether these changes are good. So yeah, this is Cotton Stoops, and I'm out. See ya.